All right, everybody, good morning. Welcome back. Hope you all are doing good. It's about 4.5 minutes till class. So I'm just gonna hang in there for a bit and let you guys get here. Hope you had a great spring break. And yeah. Just looking around this classroom for a minute. Hey Zoe, how's it going? Hello there, good morning.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, how about you?
Good. You guys are the first ones. No one came to the 9 a.m. class that I had, so
That's
yeah.
sad.
Yeah, it's all right. How's your spring break?
It was good.
Cool.
Much needed.
By the way, what's you guys' names again?
Sydney.
Sydney, okay, I remember your email.
Olga.
Olga, you too. Okay, cool. Yeah, we have a couple of live students in the room, so I'm doing the whole extra, like 9 yards with the face mask and everything.
Yeah, I like the hazard shield.
Yeah, well, it's a real professional one from Honeywell. I bought it like kind of when the pandemic started, thinking that I might eventually need to use it. So yeah, here it goes.
Very cool.
Yeah. Like Zoe, Kylie, and everybody here. Now, do you guys have your devices by chance?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you should tune in and see this live stream so that we can all be kind of on the same page. Hi, Sebastian, Zoe, Kylie. So I'm trying to like interact with both of you guys all at the same time.
Will we ask questions? Do we do
You can
that?
ask questions live in class, but I would just ask that you also type it in the chat so that there's a record for the other students too.
Perfect.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, we have 2 students in the live class, and then we have all you guys, great people here in the live stream as well. Hey, McKenna, Cordy, Sebastian, Kylie, Zoe. Appreciate you guys being here. So for you guys here in the room, you might, when you get the stream going, you'll notice that there's like a slight delay. So maybe you'll have to like probably mute your speakers and stuff. But other than that, anything I say live, you'll see it show up in the video and the chat like just a few seconds later. Hi, Brandon.
You started grading midterms yet?
Yeah, I'm making progress, but I need to probably take the remainder of this week to fully finish all of them, and then they'll be ready to go.
How are they looking?
They're looking pretty good, yeah. A nice distribution. I think people were pretty well prepared, but I don't want to comment too much until I finish. I'm about halfway through. I got a little delayed because I had to do some stuff to set up my campus access last week, like getting the COVID test and doing some paperwork, but it's all good. It'll be ready this week. Hi, Olga, Zachary, Chase. Good to see you guys. Just another few moments and we'll get started. Hi, Simon.
Yeah, I know. I spent too long.
Hello, Claire.
Questions was confusing.
And hi, Claire and Sydney and everybody here. I see you guys in the chat too. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Well, let's get started, guys. It's 10 a.m. So, you know, it's a new look. It's a new format. I mean, I'm in the classroom. This is Chapman Argyrios Forum, room 207. So yes, after spring break, as you guys know, the Chapman policy is that if some students want it, then we'll provide in-class instruction. And we do have a couple students in each of my 2 classes that wanted to do that. So I'm here for the remainder of the semester, and I'm just going to hold class meetings in this format and setting. If we ever have occasional days where student attendance drops out and there's no one there, then in that case I could remove some of the headgear like in my last class period. But when I have other students here, just to kind of, at least until I'm fully vaccinated in 2 weeks, I'm going to stick with the all the protection I possibly can find, which I definitely have. This is like a true N95 mask with another face mask with the big Honeywell face shield. So I'm good to go. And like, by the way, if there are any students that want to change their decision in terms of like someone who indicated they didn't want to attend and they decide they'd like to come and see how the class format is, that's totally fine with me. Just communicate with me. As I look around the room right now, the seats are pretty well spaced out, and it seems like there's, yeah, like enough space probably for more people. So you could probably safely seat at least, I'm thinking 15, well, I don't want to say at least, but somewhere around that number. So anyway, all I'm saying is that if there are students that decide to make an attempt to come out to class, just communicate with me and we can set it up. But you'd have to let me know first so that I can sort of make sure that no huge group all appears at the same time. Okay, so guys, thanks again. And let me know here in the chat or anything if there's any kind of issues with hearing my voice. I'm trying to speak as loud as I can and just be as clear as possible. So you'll let me know if there's any issues with that. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm working through your guys' midterms, and you know, I'm almost to the halfway point. I'll be ready to finish those this week. So as soon as they are done, I'll be in touch with you guys and I'll email you so that you can check for your scores, and I'll send you detailed comments when they're ready. I was slightly delayed last week, having to, you know, take care of some business to get ready to come back to Chapman, but not to worry. These midterms are underway, and they'll all be finished grading this week. So just sit tight for that. Okay, so let's return to our lecture series, guys. And good to see you there, Angel, Annabella, Dennis, and everyone else. And you just arrived too. Sorry, let me get your name again.
Wayne.
Wayne. Okay, cool. Good to see you. Sorry, what?
Wayne.
Lane. My bad. Lane Crable. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Yeah, so we have a total of 3 people live to go with our typical online group. Okay, so in this class so far, we started off by learning about philosophy of religion, you know, questions concerning the existence of God. Then we moved into ethics, the theory of morality, and the theoretical analysis of right and wrong, good, bad, moral, and immoral. We applied some of those ethical theories to the discussion of global inequality. Do we have obligations to the poor? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the author. And then we looked at the trolley problem. So in philosophy, there's a lot of different specialties and subject areas that people can focus on. Just how in science you've got biology, chemistry, physics, and all the rest. We've got specialties in philosophy, and we've covered 2. Now we're moving to a 3rd. So as the second half of the semester continues, we move on to a new topic in philosophy, and that is the topic called epistemology. So I'm just going to put that on the board here. Okay, so epistemology, it's just kind of like a big technical term in philosophy, but what it refers to is the study or the theory of knowledge. Okay, so the study of knowledge. So knowledge, that's the main key concept right now. We're going to try and understand what the analysis of human knowledge is. What is knowledge? How do we acquire it? What are the different elements that go into having knowledge? What's the difference between really knowing something and just having a true belief that's like a lucky guess? So you might be interested to know that the theoretical analysis of knowledge is very ancient. It has deep ancient roots. It goes all the way back to the writings of ancient Greek philosophers thousands of years ago, even hundreds of years before the Common Era. So we're going to study some of these ancient Greek writers today, including these 2 big important names. So I'm going to talk to you guys about Socrates and Plato. First of all, Socrates, just showing you the dates of his life. So he lived from 469 to 399, and that's before the Common Era, BC. And then Plato was kind of like Socrates' pupil. Socrates was his teacher. Plato lived from, let me get his dates correct, 428 to 347 BC. So we're talking there about before the Common Era. So as you guys probably do know, the Common Era kind of is dated to the beginning of the life of Jesus Christ in the early Christian period. So these are people who lived in Athens, Greece, 400 some odd years before the beginning of the Julian calendar. That's why the year of their death is a smaller number than the year of birth, because as they're getting older, they're progressing towards year zero according to the modern calendar. So very, very ancient work. Here's the thing with Socrates and Plato, I feel like they're almost like household names. You don't necessarily need to be a person who's a philosophy major or super heavy into philosophy to have at least encountered these names, I think, just in the pop culture, because they're like founding father type figures of the whole discipline of higher thought and Western philosophy. So I think in taking an intro to philosophy class, if you don't learn at least a little bit about the history of Socrates and Plato, I would consider that to be dereliction of duty on my part. So I'm going to try and talk to you guys starting today just about a brief little quick crash course history lesson on the life of Socrates. What does it say above study of knowledge? It says epistemology there, Kylie, so thanks, Olga, for the comment. Let me make sure it's clear. But you already wrote it. That's the right spelling. Here, one time, all caps. Epistemology. Yeah. So that's the word. That's the type of subject area. Sorry, hitting my own math. That's the subject area of study that we're focused on for the next couple of weeks here. Epistemology, the study of knowledge. Okay. So like I say, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about a very brief history of the life of Socrates, because I think it provides important context, and it's also just something interesting to know for any beginning student in philosophy. So I'm going to talk you through this one kind of like a narrative. Okay, so the place is Athens, and the time is like 400 BC. And imagine the town square of Athens, okay? So the town square of Athens would be like the equivalent of like a modern day downtown area where people would gather, socialize, engage in commerce, and you see like street entertainers and all kinds of stuff. So this would be like that big bustling downtown area, of course, in an ancient part of the world a long time ago. So without all the trappings of modernism, obviously. That place is where Socrates would sometimes go, and he developed a famous reputation among the community for being this brilliant and witty conversationalist. So he had this habit of setting up shop in the town square, and then people of all different walks of life, he would just engage them in discussion and dialogue on interesting and deep topics. And he had this impressive ability and skill to change people's minds, to open their minds, to get them to think differently about things that they thought they had strong opinions on before they talked to him. So he developed a famous reputation among the Athenian citizens for that skill, this kind of conversational skill. And he would do this to people of all different walks of life, all the way up to like high members of the Athenian government and military, all the way down to just like everyday folk and working people. And the way that he would engage people is that like they would come into the conversation full of confidence that they had a strong opinion on something. But then by the time they would get done talking to him through his gentle process of questioning and answer, he would lead them to new insights or to change their mind or something. So like in one case, he's talking to a Greek general, and this guy's kind of a little cynical, and he says, so to the Greek general, he asks, what's justice? And that would be like the format of a typical Socratic conversation. It starts with like a big question. What's justice? What's love? What is the good? Anyway, this general guy was saying, I think justice is just might makes right. Whoever has power, they get to dictate whatever justice is, so-called. But then by the time Socrates is done having a conversation with the person, they exit from the conversation with a completely new perspective. Like, never mind, I think now, having spoken to Socrates, that justice has to do with acting in accordance with virtue from a sense of honor or nobility. Okay, so that's just one example. And because he did this so often, a word was even developed to define this type of method of interaction. And the Greek word for that is elenchus. Okay, elenchus. This is a Greek word, elenchus. And it just is a word that refers to Socrates' distinctive method of critical question and answer. Okay, so today in the academy, we often just call this like the Socratic Method, named after him, Socrates. But in Greek, elenchus, the way that Socrates would engage people in question and answer dialogue to lead them to new insights. So he had this big reputation for doing this stuff. And because of that, he actually developed a following of like younger guys that would listen to him in the town square. So like a group of younger men would just listen to him talk and sit back and take notes on his conversations with people. Plato was one of those younger guys. So now he enters the scene. Plato and this other, set of young folks, they just thought Socrates was really cool and inspiring. And here was their perspective on him. They liked it that he was willing to challenge the tradition and received wisdom of their parents, of the Athenian society, um, and other authority figures. So they thought it was cool that he was willing to do that and step in and just have a nice exchange of ideas and a meeting of the minds with folks. So they liked him and they listened to him. But not everybody liked Socrates, okay? So as much as he had this loyal following of young people, there were some members of the Athenian government that started to talk behind closed doors about what he was doing. And some of them were really skeptical. Like some were saying this: we don't like what Socrates is doing in the town square. He calls it philosophy or whatever, but we think he's actually corrupting these young people. We think that he's, causing them to think too far outside the box. And maybe they're going to stop listening to their parents, or maybe they're going to no longer follow the Greek gods or believe they don't exist. So they were scared, concerned, fearful somehow that he was like a bad influence on the youth. So they said, let's send a messenger to Socrates to basically order him to stop doing philosophy or else we're going to arrest him. So they sent somebody to him and they said that. They said, Socrates, look, we understand that you're doing these conversations and stuff in the town square, but we don't like the influence you might be having on our young people. So we want you to stop. And if you don't stop, we'll come back and press charges and arrest you. Now, Socrates, he's defiant against that, and for good reasons. He says, there's no way that this is just. I've not done anything wrong. Me doing philosophy in the town square doesn't hurt anybody. And in fact, it makes people intellectually stronger, more capable of debate and dialogue and reasoning. So he thinks, I'm doing something good for this community, and I'm not trying to get people to stop believing in the Greek gods. Like he says, I myself believe in them very deeply and passionately. So he considers this to be illegitimate and just a witch hunt. And so he says, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. So he keeps on pressing on doing philosophy. And then they do make good on their threat. So they arrest him, they charge him, and they put him on trial. So here's something important to know. How do we have all this knowledge about what Socrates did in his life? Did he write a lot of stuff down? In fact, no. Socrates never wrote anything to the page. The only reason that we have all this detailed information about the events of his life is because other people wrote these things down and recorded them. And the primary writer who we owe the most debt to for knowing all the stuff about Socrates is Plato. So Plato's writings, which have survived, are the number one source of information about all the events of his life. But he was a real-life historical figure. There's no question about that. There's actually detailed verification from other sources, too. There was a famous playwright at the time named Aristophanes. He wrote a play called The Clouds, and Socrates is one of the characters in there, which gives further testament to the fact that he was a well-known figure at the time. And there are court records, too, I believe, that also give further evidence. So anyway, in Plato's writings, where we learn about the events of Socrates' life, they're often called dialogues, the Platonic Dialogues. And the reason they're called dialogues is because if you read them, they kind of are written in the format almost of like a play, where you have a couple of characters that exchange lines, and then they have their lines in the dialogue. The number one character in these dialogues is oftentimes Socrates, who Plato is using to express ideas and arguments in the writings. Now, there always has been and probably always will be a bit of scholarly and historical debate as to how much of the Socrates that is found in the Platonic writings is the real deal historical Socrates, and how much of it is a figurehead that's used by Plato to express his own thoughts. But the truth, as with most things, is somewhere in the middle, but we do know he was a real person. So anyway, the Platonic writing dialogue, which showcases the events of Socrates' trial, it's called the Apology. So I'll write that here, just so you know the name of that writing of Plato, the Apology. If you ever wanted to, and some may find interest in the ancient Greek culture or philosophy, then you might read some of these Platonic dialogues and you get more detail. But anyway, the Apology shows and describes the events of Socrates' trial. Now, in a way, it's kind of like an ironic title because the Apology, you think someone's saying they're sorry, trying to ask for forgiveness. But Socrates is far from apologetic. He's defiant to the last. And so they made their case, and there was a criminal justice system back then, which has some similarities to our modern day American system of criminal justice and jury-based trial. As you guys know, in our system, when someone's put on trial, we panel a jury of like 12 people, chosen from the community and agreed to by both lawyers, and then those people weigh in on the fate of the accused. In Athens, there was a jury system as well, but it wasn't limited to 12 people. In fact, Dennis, you asked in the chat, so the Apology is the court case against Socrates. Well, the Apology is the writing of Plato, which describes the events of the trial, yes. So I'm just saying the name of the Platonic writing that you would find if you looked it up is called the Apology. And in that, yes, Dennis, they do discuss the trial against Socrates in court. So as I was saying, they had a jury, but the jury would be the set of all male adult citizens that were eligible. So instead of having like 12 members, you'd have hundreds, and you'd have big auditorium-style seating where all these hundreds of male jurors that were adults would sit. So the arguments were presented in court. Sorry, the mask, you never get used to it. Arguments were presented in court by the government of Athens, and then Socrates tries to defend himself. At the conclusion of arguments, there was a procedure where the accused was given an option to present a counter penalty to the jury. Okay, so let me explain that point. This would normally be the point in the system where the accused person tries to appeal to the mercy of the jury, and they say something like this. So the official penalty that the state has asked for is whatever, but if you guys find me guilty, I would humbly request that you set the penalty somewhat lower. So like as an example, suppose that someone was accused by the state and they wanted a sentence of 10 years hard labor, then maybe they would go up there and say that, 10 years is pretty punitive, I'm innocent, but if you find me guilty, I would humbly request that you reduce the sentence to 5 years. So normally that would be the point where they would try to sort of finesse a counter penalty that would sound more lenient, but still serious enough to give effect to the guilty verdict. Anyway, Socrates has his chance now to propose the counter penalty, and he goes up before everyone. And again, this is written up in the Apology, so that's, you can find it there. But he says, okay, everyone, you've heard the arguments. They say that I'm corrupting the youth, and I tell you that's total nonsense, and this is just a fabricated charge, and it's a witch hunt against me. So it's totally false. I don't deserve it. I've done nothing but good for Athens my whole life, so this is messed up. If you find me guilty, though, which I'm not, they want to punish me with the death penalty. They want to execute me, which is the most severe penalty you can possibly have. So he says, let me propose something a little lighter than that, because death is a little bit too much for what I've been accused of. So if you find me guilty, how about something that's a little more fit for what I've so-called done? Not death, that's too much. But how about you just instead reduce it to, wait for it, free lunch for life in the public cafeteria? That would be a better penalty, huh? Because maybe you're not listening. You punish someone when they do something wrong. That's when you punish them. But I've done nothing but good. And this philosophy that I'm doing in the town square is good for Athens, it's good for you, it's good for everybody. So if you want to give me what I deserve, how about punish me with free lunch for the rest of my life in the cafeteria, okay? Now, you guys know that free lunch is in no way a punishment. I mean, that's a reward, if anything, right? And it's even more than that, because this cafeteria that he's talking about is like the Hall of Heroes, which is reserved for like war heroes and famous citizens of Athens. So he's saying, I deserve a high honor, not a punishment. So anyway, that's his defiant statement against the whole proceedings at the end. The jury deliberates. They come back. They've decided he's guilty. For whatever reason, they've found him guilty. So now he's sentenced to be executed to death. Now, the method of execution was to drink poison. He's supposed to drink hemlock poison. And but there's one more or a couple more little plot twists, okay? So in Athens back then, they had this kind of cultural belief, a superstitious belief maybe, but the thought was if you have a person sentenced to be executed by the state, and if there's also a cargo ship that's currently out on like some kind of cargo mission, Now you're supposed to wait for the ship to safely return to the harbor first before you execute, because they thought that if you didn't do this, that somehow one of the Greek gods would become upset and they would show their wrath by causing the boat to sink in the ocean. So to execute Socrates in a way that would not upset the gods, according to their beliefs, they had to wait for a ship to return, because there was a ship out to sea at the time. So it would take about a week for it to get back to the harbor. And that meant that they had to hold Socrates for a little while, waiting for the return of a ship before they could impose the sentence. So there's about a 1 week time period there where he's being held in like a chamber, like a dungeon type thing, waiting for the ship to return. Now, late one night in that time period, deep in the night, in come some of these young guys to his chambers, that the followers of Socrates that like love him. And this is also written in another one of Plato's dialogues. So if you want to read the detailed account of this piece, that dialogue is called Crito. So anyway, maybe you'll see that someday and read it. You certainly could. It's interesting. But okay, so in the Crito, young guys are coming in there. They're like, okay, Socrates, a kind of hushed tone of voice. Come on, let's go. Let's go. We bribed some of the guards. We snuck in here late at night. Look, you know what we're doing. We're trying to get you out of here. We're breaking you out of prison. It's time to go. We don't think it's right. You know it's not right. Everybody back in Athens, except for like only the most, hardened few, they understand this is wrong. There's no way that you deserve to be executed for doing something as good for everybody as doing philosophy and opening our minds and expanding our horizons. So we need you to leave with us. Come on, let's go. We got these chariots, horse-drawn chariots. Come with us, and we will get you far away from Athens so that you can continue to do your thing, do philosophy, the stuff that you love and the stuff that's been so good for us and for everybody else. We're doing this for you because we care about you, Socrates, and we don't want you to be executed. That's fundamentally wrong. That's what they say. But, okay, here we go. What do you guys think? What would be Socrates' answer? Does he go? Does he stay? Why? Why not? What do you think? Anybody? Any view on that? I'm willing to hear your view. Anybody, either in the chat or in the class, if you have a thought.
He probably said no.
Probably said no. Why?
Because you said there was a plot twist.
Well, okay, yeah, just based on my statement, maybe that's one reason. Yeah.
He was probably like, it's not right.
Okay, cool. Put it in the chat too. And then, yeah.
Socrates seems like the kind of guy to try to be, he's like, I want to convince them to let me go.
Yeah, like he doesn't want to do it if it's not righteous. Like he doesn't want to have to break the law or something, right? Kind of thing.
And he's also very confident and thinks that he totally can.
Yeah,
So
well,
I can see that.
maybe so. So there's that possibility. Let me see here in the chat too. Sydney, he probably said no because not right. Good, got you. Anyone else out there online? You guys have a view about it? Well, while you're thinking or possibly typing, I'll let you just kind of know. Yeah, Socrates, is it a surprise? He said, no, I'm not going to leave, actually. I refuse to leave and escape. And here he gives his reasons. Okay, so first he says, look at me, I'm 70 years old, okay, and if you want me to escape with you, I'm going to have to become a fugitive of justice at this advanced age. And how am I going to really live that way? Looking over my shoulder all the time, wondering, am I going to get apprehended? He didn't want to live like a fugitive. Olga, you say same. Okay, good. And so that's one thing, the difficulties of living the fugitive lifestyle. Then he also says, I would have to become an exile from Athens. I have to escape Athens at that point. But he doesn't want to leave Athens. He loves Athens, and he makes a point about that. He says, I'm a patriotic citizen of Athens. I served in the Athenian military. I had children here, raised them here. So he says, Athens has given me everything. I don't want to just abandon the city. And then he also says he believes in the immortality of the soul. So he says, I don't fear death because I know that, my soul is immortal and it'll just escape to the heavenly forms where it'll be for eternity. So I'm not worried about that. And then he also says this, which is perhaps the most poignant way of putting it. He says, I don't want to live by the principle either that you should break the law when you don't agree with the outcome of justice in the justice system. He says this is an unjust verdict, and we can agree on that. So definitely it's not right, and it's totally unfair, and I don't deserve it. But I don't want people to think that Socrates' principle that he lived by was that if you don't agree with the way that justice is handed down, then you should just go full anarchist and rebel and break laws. So he said, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to accept this principle that I'm going to take the punishment, even though it's not fair. So they try to plead with him a little more. They say, Socrates, come on, can't we change your mind? We did all this stuff. This is your only chance. Let's go. And he says, sorry, guys, but I'm going to stay firm with my decision. I'm not leaving. I'm sticking here on principle that I'm not going to disrespect the system, and I'm going to take the penalty. So, the next day, I guess, the ship does arrive back, and now they can execute him, I guess, in a way that doesn't upset the gods. So there's a famous painting, like kind of one of those classic Renaissance paintings called The Death of Socrates. And in it, you see him on his back lying on like a table, reclining. And he's encircled by this group of young guys, including Plato. And he has this pose, where he's pointing his finger towards the ceiling. And, it's art, so there's always symbolism in everything that is done in art. So what's the significance, or what does this pose represent? It could be many things, that his soul is escaping it to the heavens, or that there's a higher truth that he wants people to continue to pursue. But anyway, that's how Socrates' life ends. And then after that, Plato kind of carries the torch forward of Greek knowledge and thought, and he founds what's called Plato's Academy, which is considered the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. By the way, let me just check on something. How's the connection there? Guys in the classroom seeing me? Because I'm looking on my end, and I'm seeing, how about over here? To those in the chat that are watching online, how are you guys doing? Is everything good? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Just making sure, because I'm seeing some, I think it's just glitchy stuff with the number of members. It kind of is like jumping. So I don't know if that's just something on my end or if you're actually having trouble. Connection is good, seems good to you. Okay, perfect, just making sure, just checking in, guys.
Yeah, see, it keeps dropping to the one and then going back.
Yeah, you see that?
Yeah.
But I don't think that has anything to do with the membership.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, guys. Sorry, just a minor glitch. I was just making sure we didn't have any problems, but we don't. Okay, so where was I? I was saying that Plato carries forward and founds the Plato's Academy, which is kind of like the equivalent or the ancient ancestor of our modern university system. And he has this student there, Aristotle. So now this is an older Plato, and one of his younger students is Aristotle. Maybe you've heard that name. That's one of the famous figures in the lineage of Greek philosophers. After Aristotle gets older, he ends up becoming a teacher to Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great conquers a whole bunch of land in Europe and elsewhere, and that further secures, cements, and spreads the legacy and tradition of Greek thought and knowledge, which we still are talking about it today in 2021. So I kind of sometimes think that Socrates' decision not to escape might have been a very important decision for his legacy, because had he lived as a fugitive, his historical record would have been much different, just a common escaped fugitive. But in the way he did it, it's almost like he became a martyr-like figure for the establishment of Western philosophy, like literally kind of dying on principle rather than repudiate the good moral record of his life at the end. So anyway, guys, that's just about Socrates. I wanted to say that since we're going to learn some of their ideas. The next step, though, before we really jump into the writing of the writing of Plato in this dialogue, is I want to set up and establish a quick little vocabulary within epistemology. You see, there's basically some key terms and concepts that you have to become familiar with to really have a full-blown investigation on the concept of knowledge. So I'm going to clear the board for now, and we're going to start to build up some pieces of epistemology vocabulary. Okay, guys? Okay. Okay, so epistemology vocabulary. Sorry for the little glare. I can see that is in kind of the center of the screen. Not much I can do about that one, but I think we can work with it. Okay, so first big vocabulary term to kind of learn here is the word proposition. Okay, now what is a proposition in the philosophical sense of the term? Proposition is the meaning of a sentence, and I'll explain that with some examples, but first, here's the definition. The meaning of a sentence. meaning of a sentence. Okay, so you might see that and you might initially be a little confused, like, well, meaning of a sentence, how is that different from the sentence itself? But there is a difference, and here I can explain with an example. Okay, so I'm going to write two sentences right here on the board, two different sentences. The first one here, it's going to say, the snow is white. The snow is white? Okay. Below that, I'm writing another sentence, and what it says is, der Schnee ist weiß. Der Schnee ist weiß, the snow is white. Now, I suppose probably, maybe not too many of you guys are like fluent or familiar with German, but even if you're not, I mean, English is a Germanic language, and there's certain similarities in the words and cognate sounds. So here's my question to help develop your knowledge here of this term, proposition. How many sentences are written here? Two. Definitely two. They're spelled differently. They sound different when you say them. But if you had to guess, how many propositions are there on this point or part of the board? Two sentences, but how many propositions? What would you guess? Anybody can let me know. Yeah? Okay, you're saying one, Lane? Why? It's correct. Good. Okay. So can we all understand? Good, Cordy and Sydney and others. These are two sentences, but they have the same propositional content. They basically mean the same thing. It's just the snow is white, one proposition stated in the language of English, der Schnee ist weiß, saying that the snow is white, just in German. So anyway, what you learn here is that the same content information can be expressed by means of different symbols or sounds. Two languages give an easy example of that. But even within one language, the same phenomenon could be seen. If, for example, I say that Dr. Vulic is in room 207 of Argyrio's forum, doesn't that have the same complete information as saying that room 207 of Argyrio's forum is where Dr. Vulic is? You see, so in the one case, I was the subject of a sentence. In the other case, the room where I am is the subject. But it's the same information, you understand? So the propositional content is conveyed by means of the inscriptions that you write or type, or the sounds that you make when you speak auditorily. But it's very interesting and kind of a little trippy to think about how the content itself is not essentially expressed by the specific sounds or symbols that we use, right? We can clearly see that there are other languages which can convey the same facts and information with different sounds or with different inscriptions. And we can imagine a counterfactual course of world history where even far different or even alien sounds or inscriptions might have been the way of conveying information. But these are the symbols and sounds that we have led ourselves to at this point in our history and our culture. So anyway, why have I started with proposition? Because it is propositions that are the objects of our knowledge. They are the things that we either know or do not know. So take the proposition that the world is round. That proposition is something I would say that we know. Or the proposition that God exists. That's one, I guess, that's a little bit more debated by people. Certainly, we discussed that debate earlier in the class, but many people do think that, yes, that's a true fact. So, propositions, the meaning of a sentence. Next. The next vocabulary term, this is a big important one, the concept of truth. Now, we'll get the definition up there and we'll have clear discussion of it, but I would like to see if any of you guys can tell me what you would think the word truth means, because, you know, it's a word we use all the time, and in a way, your common sense will probably have some, at least vague working understanding of that. Like, so if I say to you, I'm wearing a face shield, that's true. If I tell you that I'm wearing sunglasses, that's not true, not right now. So, what is the difference then between the two sentences such that one is true and the other is false? Who can tell me what you think it is for a proposition or sentence to be true? Cordy, veracity corresponds to reality. Well, it's very good, Cordy, yes. I mean, I like how you kind of got it out of the park on the first attempt, because oftentimes when I ask that, people say something else. They'll say, oh, something that's based on good evidence. And I know why you would think so, because evidence is kind of what you need to have a reason to think something's true. But just the fact that something is true doesn't necessarily depend on anyone having evidence for it yet. Like take, for example, someone getting murdered. Sorry, it's a dark example, but someone got murdered, buried in the desert, and no one ever found the body, and nobody knew what happened to the person. It could still be true that they were murdered, even if nobody has the evidence or facts to prove it, at least not yet. So truth, now that we've had this little discussion, hopefully it will make sense. Truth is just whenever the proposition, whatever it says, matches the facts of reality. Okay, so truth, when what a proposition says matches or corresponds to the actual facts of reality. So that's the concept of truth. When whatever the proposition says is what's real in reality. So like if I tell you that I'm wearing the face shield, it's true because I'm not just saying it. I am saying it, but here it is, okay? If I said I was wearing sunglasses, that would be just a statement I make, but it's not matched by the facts, so it would be a false statement. Or if I told you that I was born in 1950, I mean, that's just not the case. That is not a fact. So I could say it, but that's not the actual date and time that I was born. So truth is about matching of two things, the statement and then the world. So, sometimes we pass along false information unknowingly. Sometimes we hear false information and then we relay it to someone else, and then they become misinformed. Other times, we pass along false information on purpose to try and trick or deceive people. Like someone's not sick, but they tell the professor I'm sick, so I need an extension. Or they're cheating on someone in a relationship and they say, I've never done that. Are you kidding? But they really did. So statements can match or not match the world. In the best case scenario, we hope that there's a lot of truth out there. But of course, you have to sometimes be able to see through deception and try your best not to give into any temptation to deceive others. But anyway, truth. Now, the order of these terms is specifically given in a precise way, because to know the meaning of the next one, we've got to refer to something about the previous one. So we started with proposition. That's just the meaning of a sentence. We move on to truth. That is when the meaning of the sentence matches reality. Now we have a new concept that builds on this, which is belief. Okay? So what do you think it means to believe a proposition or to have a belief in a statement? And here's a hint. It has something to do with the word truth that we've just now defined. So, I mean, like what? Do you believe that the Earth orbits the sun, or do you believe that, I don't know, Columbus sailed in 1492, or do you believe that I'm wearing a face mask? What if I told you believe some of those things? What does it mean to believe something? Or we started the whole class with the debate about belief in God. Some say they think the statement God exists, they believe that. And there you have atheists that say, I don't think that's true and I don't believe it. So I don't want to give it away. I guess I'm kind of getting close to just saying the definition. But what do you think is a belief? For a person to believe a sentence or proposition, you had to guess, what would you say is the definition? Because, I mean, you have beliefs, yeah?
Thinking that something is true.
Yes, that's very good. Correct. And theorizing, Cordy, you say? Well, I guess one way you could put it is theorizing, but that's a little bit almost too scientific, right? Like if I say that I think someone stole my package because I ordered something from Amazon and they said it was delivered, but now it's not on my doorstep. I don't know if I would say I have a theory because it sounds like a little bit too involved, but I would say, yeah, I believe that, it was stolen. But fine, in theory is the sort of specific word we use in like the field of science to describe beliefs that are well developed and based on abundant evidence. But we can sometimes have beliefs that we just form even on a hunch. I could say sitting right here that I believe there's aliens in outer space, but I don't have a theory of it, except to say that I just think it's possible. Okay, so good. Thinking that something is true. Belief. When a subject thinks that a proposition is true. So when you think that the statement matches reality, suppose you're having a discussion with your roommate about that missing package, and you say you think it was stolen, and they're like, you know what? No, I don't think someone would actually steal it. You need to check with FedEx or USPS and maybe double check that the delivery wasn't messed up. So two people can disagree about what they believe, right? You can have one person that believes the world is round and another person that disagrees with them and thinks, no, it's not round, it's flat, or something like that, even though I hope none of you believe that. So beliefs are kind of up to you, but the truth is objective. So beliefs are subjective, but there's only one set of facts. So say that you have the flat earther and then the round earther, sane person. These people have different beliefs, but there can't be two planets. There's just one planet with one shape. It can't possibly, geometrically impossible for it to be both a sphere and a disk. So, when two people agree, they cannot both be correct. If you have a theist and an atheist, they can't both be right. It can't be that there is, but also there isn't God. So anyway, truth is when we think something's true, we believe it. Based on the definition of truth that we're learning here, you would hope to have most of your beliefs being true, because if they are not, you have a head full of false beliefs, then by definition of true and false, you're out of touch with reality. You think that certain things are happening and are real, but they're not really happening. So we'll never be perfect. We're not omniscient beings like God, so it's not like we're going to have 100% perfect knowledge in every case, but the best we can do is just try to follow evidence wherever it leads without bias, and then we'll probably be able to have more often than not true beliefs. But of course, it's not impossible to make errors. I mean, even highly skilled detectives and investigators can sometimes pursue false convictions based on evidence that seemed to indicate guilt, but was later overturned, through DNA or whatever. So we're not striving for perfection per se. Well, I guess we are, but even if we can't get there, we just want to do better than worse. Okay, so now one more important piece of terminology, or actually maybe I'll add one more after that, but one more big one to add to this list, and that's justification, okay? So now let me ask this. What do you think it means to have a justified belief, to have justification for your belief? So say I have a belief which is justified as opposed to somebody who has an unjustified belief. What do you think would be the difference between the status, having justification versus lacking it? Anybody can let me know that. Justification. You're saying you have evidence. Okay, that's good. Good evidence to back up your belief. Anybody else have a similar intuition? Have corresponding evidence, Sebastian, to have reasons to back it up? Very good. So you guys, you're onto it. That's right. So here, let me put it on the table, on the board. Justification, it's exactly that. It's having good reasons or evidence to support, to back up your belief. Having good evidence / reasons, because they're kind of the same idea, but I'll put the slash. Is this too far to the right? No, I think it's okay. Having good evidence or reasons to support your belief, to support one's belief. Okay, that's justification. Having good evidence or reasons to support what you believe. So like, suppose the person thought that the package was stolen, but they don't just think that. They have, like, say, footprints that lead to where the package would have been left. And maybe there's also, FedEx has indicated that it has been delivered. And then maybe they have a security camera, which mysteriously, like, they see a gloved hand appear in front of it for a moment, and then after that, the package is gone. So they might say, look, I have like 3 different pieces of evidence which indicate that the package was in fact stolen. That's something to go from. If someone asks you why, the things that you would say for why would be your justification that you provide. And so justification gives us a reason to think that something is true. It's the kind of stuff that is presented in court to try and compel the verdict of guilt or not guilty. You can't just go in there and say, hey, the guy's guilty, let's get this over with. You have to try and make the case, and you have to be able to show through certain evidence that beyond probable doubt, the person in all likelihood did commit the crime. So evidence is sometimes compiled and found in like an official legal setting or medical setting or whatever, but in everyday life it happens too. You see that there's like a scuff on your car and you're thinking, well, how did that happen? And you start considering possibilities as to maybe how you could have done it or how it could have happened while you were parked or whatever. Someone's suspicious of their partner, so they start looking at their phone and they start checking, the records and messages to see if there's any evidence that they've been talking to someone else. So anyway, justification, guys, it gives you reasons to think that something's true, and it adds greater probability to having a true belief when it's based on justification. Otherwise, we wouldn't care about having it. So one more piece of vocabulary, and then we could put all these pieces together a little bit to give you our concise definition of knowledge. Some of that may have to wait for the Wednesday meeting, but if it does, that's okay. We've got plenty of time. So I'm going to just add one more term here to the board, maybe in this free area, and that's the word epistemic agent. Now, what's an epistemic agent? This one's pretty simple. It's just a being, any being that is capable of having beliefs or knowledge. Okay, so I wrote that definition there. Epistemic agent, a being that is capable of having beliefs or knowledge. Okay, now I'm going to ask what I hope is an easy question, guys. Based on that definition and what you already know about such things as these, tell me, do you think this expo marker that I'm writing with is an epistemic agent? Yes or no? Is this one of those things that is capable of having beliefs or knowledge, or is it not?
No.
It is not. Okay, good. I'm sure that any of you here watching this can agree that this is not an epistemic agent. And I mean, it's an obvious point, but let's make it even more obvious. Why? Why is it so obvious and clear, self-evident, that this thing here is not an epistemic agent? Why not? Why not? You say it's not?
It's not living.
Good, okay, so it's an inanimate object, right? To have the ability to form beliefs or knowledge, you have to have at least perception, right? So you at least have to have like a central nervous system that can have sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, etc., to even take in information about what's happening in your environment. So this is an inanimate object. But of course, you and I, these human beings that are participating in this meeting, we are epistemic agents. Now, a lot of times you don't think about your status as an epistemic agent because you're just living. But it's fascinating if you take a third-person point of view towards the universe. I mean, look at this universe and just consider how much of the material in it is not thinking, conscious, or aware of anything. You know, you've got comets, planets, stars, black holes, a bunch of matter, a bunch of stuff, but it's not sitting there thinking, perceiving, judging, or understanding any of it. But me and you are. So it's kind of fascinating to be this thing in this giant universe that is an epistemic agent. So we are capable of having beliefs and knowledge. Do you think there are any non-human epistemic agents? I'll just close class on this question. Things that are epistemic agents that are not human beings. Any thoughts about this?
AI.
You say AI. Interesting. It wouldn't have been my first suggested thought. But yeah, maybe if they're very smart. That raises questions that we'll get into later. Could computers ever think at all? Even if they simulate the processes of thinking that human beings engage in, there are questions about whether it's really doing anything like thinking or if it's just computation, but it's unconscious. That's one possibility. Cordy, you talk about intelligent animals, and I would have said so as well. Yeah, so you're mentioning dolphins and octopus and stuff, but I don't think it necessarily takes the highest, most intelligent animals. Like, I mean, look, even little insects and stuff seem to know when there's food in their environment or when there's something that's a threat. Certainly my cats have knowledge about like when I'm opening food or when I'm there or when I'm coming back. By the way, it's their birthdays, so yeah, happy birthday to Peach and Eddie. I'll be back. Huh? Yeah, because they're brothers and sisters. So 1 year old. They're one today, so I'll be back with them in like 30 minutes. Let me close this meeting though with one more thing. We're going to pick up where we left off next time. We're going to complete these discussions of knowledge and the ancient Greek perspective on it. With office hours that I normally would hold from 11 to 12 on Fridays, I'm going to have to adjust that because now I'm here on campus till 10:50, and then I'll be driving home. So I'm just going to make it to 11:30 to 12:30 because I only need about 30 minutes to get home. So anyway, I'll make a notification through Canvas after this class period so you guys remember that. But it's not a big change, just a 30-minute difference from the original scheduled time. So with 10:50 here, do anybody have any last-minute questions or comments, anything I could help you with? If not, let me know you're all good, and then I'll close the stream. Or if you do have any such questions, put those in there, and I'll help you at that. But yeah, long story short, I'm on campus now doing the live teaching stuff, And we have a couple students here, so if there's a few more that want to attend at any time, they could just let me know and we could set it up. That would be no problem. But otherwise, the system's working okay, I guess. Okay, thanks, Sebastian. Appreciate it. Everyone else, are you all good? I'd just like to get that little feedback and reassurance before I close the stream. I don't want anyone to be hanging. Okay, perfect then, guys. So thanks again. Thanks so much. I hope that you were able to pay attention and learn, and that I wasn't too much of a distraction with all the headgear. Once the vaccine is fully effective for me on April 17th, then I'll chill a little bit more on all that. But for now, anyway, I'm just being extra cautious. Okay, then. Well, thanks so much, guys. Take care, and I'll see you back on Wednesday. Okay, and thank you guys so much. It's really nice.